If you've never heard of Territory Studio, I can guarantee you've seen their work. They're responsible for some of the coolest motion graphics work currently out there, in films like The Martian, Ex Machina, Guardians of the Galaxy, so you'll understand why I'm still freaking out about the fact that we got to work with Territory on Go Bag's in title sequence. Like many, I'm a huge nerd for title sequences. I think they have the potential to accomplish so many things. As a storytelling tool, they can establish your film's tone and attitude, they can be expository, and I'll just say it, they can just be really rad to look at. And Territory's Go Bag sequence is no exception.
In terms of what inspired the visual design, I'd say a lot of the projects that we've worked on at Territory previously. So we have like our go-to 3D render passes that we use for screen graphics, and we thought it'd be kind of cool to see how much we can push this in terms of a title sequence. So I'd say I modeled around 75% of the assets that appear in this sequence, and I modeled them in Cinema 4D. The idea was to create these models and then use the point data from these models inside of Form. It's really good for importing OBJs that you make in Cinema 4D. We basically model some assets in Cinema, pull them into Form, and then you can turn that object into points. So it had to be kind of aware of the topology and not have areas like of too many dense points, and then also have it looking quite interesting, because ultimately the topology is going to become part of the design, is all going to come through, and that was what's going to drive the look. It is important to model these in a way where they read as the item that they were supposed to be, but they weren't overly sort of subdivided and dense. A lot of how I wanted it to come across was like this kind of conveyor belt that's moving and shifting and stopping, well, no, never quite stopping, but slowing down so that the computer could kind of analyze these bits, and then the camera would move in and shift and rotate. And there were rules in the sense that like everything had to be quite snappy and not too eased. These weren't necessarily limitations that were like definitive and like written out. It was mainly based on like the feeling and the tone that I kind of wanted to resonate. We had the chance to play with Trapcode's newest plugin, Tao, to make these transitional parts, like these random cuts. We dialed in the settings in quite a big way, so rather than having like big chunks of geometry, we scaled it right down to sort of line work, and then it has these kind of cool features where you can sort of repeat your pattern or your geometry and offset it. So once it's scaled down, it just looks like a lot of lines, and then you apply these kind of like 3D noise and fractal displacements to it. You get some really interesting results. I feel like it adds a different layer to the piece by having these interjected cuts every now and again. The text animation was a lot of fun. I used this little like custom Cinema 4D preset that our head of 3D, Peter and myself made, and it's basically the 3D version of After Effects Mosaic plugin. And so you can kind of add an image sequence, it could be anything, and use that to sort of drive a bunch of effectors. I went through and animated all of the text of the title sequence in After Effects, and then rendered that out, and then brought that in Cinema 4D and ran it through this preset. And then once I rendered that whole sequence out, I poured it all back into After Effects, and then offset kind of blocky text animation with the original type animation, and then added some extra effects, and then ended up being this kind of like steppy text animation. So that was a lot of fun. The main thing that drew me towards this project was creative freedom. It's always an amazing opportunity to work on projects where you have that level of freedom, and the client trusts you. And in this case, the client was Red Giant, and everyone in the motion graphics industry knows Red Giant and uses their plugin. So it was a great opportunity to collaborate with guys like Seth and Aharon, and just have a bit of time to explore and try new things, and then try new plugins.